Justin Cook. He's an animator, cartoon illustrator, and caricaturist. This is the Adobe Illustrator course for the cartoonist. Justin teaches you how to create custom brushes to create solid, smooth vector lines for inking cartoons to create wonderful line art. In this course, Justin demonstrates how to color your characters and techniques like cell shading, using gradients, and lots more. By the end of this course, you will easily understand how to use Adobe Illustrator to start inking and coloring your own cartoon characters straight away. This course is close to 3 hours long in real time.
It is the emergence of love.
In this video, we're going to take a look at creating some custom brushes for use in Adobe Illustrator. So we're going to create some nice different varying line widths just for our inking phase of the artwork. And we're not going to be using pressure sensitivity, but I would highly recommend using a graphics tablet of some description so you can pick them up fairly cheaply. It's very difficult to draw on screen with the mouse, so you just want the flexibility of using the pen on the screen here. So again, we're not using the pressure sensitivity feature of the pen, but we just want the control of it as we draw our lines. Okay, so what we're going to do is create our first brush. First thing, you want to make sure that your brush's palette is open. If it isn't, you can come up to Window here and just click on Brushes and make sure it's open. And in the swatches here, I just want a black fill with no stroke, so I'm just going to swap this out, turn off the stroke. Okay, so the first brush you're going to create is a nice thin to thick line here, and it's going to kind of taper in and taper out, so it'll go from thin, thick, thin. So quite a nice variation there. So I'm just going to grab the ellipse tool and stretch it out so it's kind of flattened. So if we take a look here, we've got this nice shape here, so I'm just going to flatten that down a bit more. And you can see here that it goes from thin to thick to thin again. So that would be our first brush. Secondly, we're going to create another brush. I want it to go from thick to thin. So just selecting the ellipse tool, I'm going to hold down Shift. So I'll create a perfect circle here, and using the direct selection tool, I'm just going to grab this end point using the arrow key, just pull it this way. So we get a nice thick to thin line here. And what I'm doing here, I'm creating the lines on the screen first, and then I'll create the brushes. This way I know I've got a nice consistent thickness at the starting point for each line here. Okay. And also what I'm going to do is just copy and paste this. So I'm hitting Command C, Command F, which will paste in front. I'm going to grab this one, pull it down, and this end here I just want to flatten off. So the easy way to do this is grab the rectangle tool, just draw that over the top there, so we just cut off that rounded part. Select both, come to the Pathfinder tool here, and we want this one here which will minus the front, so the shape at the front will cut away into the behind shape. So if we click that, let's close the Pathfinder, and you'll see here that we've got this flat edge down to this tapered end here. So this can just come in handy for certain areas. You know, sometimes you get this round bit kind of in the way, and this flat end will work quite nicely. So that's the third brush. And the fourth one I want to create is for working with circles. So at the moment, if we were to draw a circle, so say we were drawing maybe an emblem on a uniform, or maybe the shape of an eyeball, rather than drawing it freehand, we'd probably want to use the ellipse tool here. So if you hold Shift and pull out, you get this circle. So if we had it as just a stroke here, and we pushed up the stroke, you'll see here we've got a very consistent weight around this circle. So what I want to do is create a brush where we can have a little bit of variation in this line width. So if if I create the line for that first, and then when we create the brushes, I'll demonstrate how this one works. So let's delete this. This is an easy one to do, so make sure, again, we're just working with a fill, no stroke, and to go to the rectangle tool, and just pull out rectangle, so something like that, around the same thickness again. And what I want to do is add 2 points to the centre of these lines. So at the moment we've got 4 points, we've got 1 in each corner. So with this selected, I'm going to go to the pen tool. On the fly out, I want to select this tool, the add anchor point tool, and where this centre point is, go just above this. So we're going to add a point here in this top line, and same again here. So now we've got 2 extra points. Now come back to this pen tool, and we want this, the convert anchor point tool. So now if I select this, I'm going to click that, and I'm just going to pull this out, holding shift so I can keep it straight. I'm just going to nudge it up a couple of points. Same with this point here, so I'm going to convert. Make sure you get it in the right direction. So you'll see here, if I'm going in the wrong direction, I'll twist the shape out. You want it to be consistent, so it's like a swoop. Otherwise you'll kind of, if you see there, we're twisting the shape. So keep it in the correct direction there, if you can see that. Holding down shift will just constrain that along the length of the line there. And then again, with this selected, oops, I want to pull this down a couple of points. So you'll see here, when I deselect, I've now got this shape that kind of bows in the middle. So it's the consistent width either end, and then it just kind of bows off in the middle here. Okay, so we've got 4 brushes here that we're going to create. So this first one, this top one, I'm just going to select it, drag it into the brushes menu. This dialog box will appear, new brush. I want to select art brush. Okay. Another options box will appear, so you can call this whatever you want. So I'll just keep this as art brush 1, but feel free to name it something that you can remember if you know you're happy with that. Okay, so down here in the scale options, we'll keep that at stretch to fit stroke length, and down at colorization, change this to tint. Now this will allow us to change the line on the screen with a different swatch colour. And OK. So you see now it's moved over into your brushes library. So this line on the screen we can delete. So if I select the brush tool now and come over to the brushes and select this one, we paint on the screen, you'll see this nice line we've created with that brush, and we've got some flexibility here. We can change the stroke width of the brush here, so we can make it thicker and thinner, and you can fine tune it by selecting it, grabbing the direct selection tool, grabbing a point. So if you need to move it ever so slightly, you can do that. So that's the first brush. Okay, so the second one here, let's click and drag this into the library. Again, new art brush. Keep this the same here in the scale options. Now this here, we're going to change the direction. So you'll see this arrow going from left to right. So it's going from the thin edge to the thicker end. So if we draw this on the screen, we'll start with a thin and then go to thick. But I want it the opposite. I want it to act more like a paintbrush. So when I put the brush down, it's nice and thick, and then it will taper off thin as I lift the brush off of the page. All I need to do is click on this arrow here to change the direction, and you'll see that the arrow is now going from the thick end to the thin. Remember to change your colorization to tints, and OK. So we can delete this now because we've now got this brush over in the library now. So again, if we grab the brush tool, we've got this nice thick to thin line, And now if I deselect, grab the brush tool and grab the previous brush we created, if I do the same here, you'll see we've got two different types of brush, and you can see here the thickness in the thick parts are pretty much consistent. That's why I created these pieces on the screen first. If I went in and did it one at a time, there may be some inconsistency, so if I want to change the stroke width of each of these, I know that if I create them all at the same time, if I want them to both be a stroke width of 2, they're going to remain pretty consistent now. So that's the reason why I create these pieces on the screen first. Okay, so let's delete these. The third one is the same as the second, but we've just got this kind of blunted off end here. So let's drag that in here again. New art brush. Again with the direction, I want it to go from thick to thin, so I'm going to change the direction, and remember you're changing here to tints and OK. So we can delete this, grab the brush tool, and you'll see here we've got this nice line. So let's grab the brush tool so we can see the difference between these two here. So it's just gives us a bit more flexibility when we're joining lines up. Sometimes, you know, if we want to join a line up, there's one coming down this way for instance, so something like that. You know, this one can sometimes fit nicely, whereas this one, if you've got it just where you want it, sometimes you can have this bit kind of sticking out too much. So it just gives you a bit more flexibility. It's only a small thing, but it helps, just little shortcuts here and there. Okay, so this final one, let's do the same, drag and drop into your brushes, art brush, and this doesn't really matter which direction we go in because we know that it's going to go from the same width either end. We just need to change this to tints, delete this, and this is quite a nice brush, so to use it just as a line gives us a nice kind of ribbon effect, like so. So that's quite a nice brush to work with. But where this really comes in handy is for the ellipse tool and things like that. So if we were to grab the ellipse tool, okay, if I grab the normal brush for the time being and demonstrate what we have here, so I'm just going to take the stroke up to something we can see clearly, so say around 14 points. Okay, so let's zoom in. Now I can see this is quite uniform, so there's no variation in line width there. If I copy and paste this, now we know we've created some brushes that go from thick to thin, but this won't work. Say for example this one here, Art Brush 2, where it went thick to just thin. If we create that, you'll see we've got this area here that just, where it joins up, it just goes back to thin. So what we need to do is use this new tapered brush. So I'm just going to copy and paste, bring this down. So now if I come down to this new brush here and select that, you'll see now we've got this nice shape here. So we've got a kind of thick end on this side and it kind of tapers out here, and we can of course move this around. So the other option to create a shape like that would be to use the pathfinder. So just quickly, if I were to create this circle and then create another one on top, so I'm just going to grab a different colour to demonstrate. So you know, I could kind of put this on top and offset it slightly for it to go thick and thin here. Select both, come to the pathfinder, minus front. Now that's another way of doing it, but it's an extra step. So you've got exactly the same result but with an extra step. So all we need to do So just grab that circle, knock it up to the stroke size we want, grab that brush, and we're done. Okay, so they're the brushes we'll be working with, and what we're going to do is create the artwork with that. As we create the line work, everything's going to be on a stroked path. So let me demonstrate what that means. If I grab the brush tool here, let's grab the first brush we created. So this line here, if I copy and paste this, so say this was for instance a finished piece of artwork. If I wanted to shrink this down and put it into a composition, as it stands, if I shrink that down now, you're going to find that we've still got a stroke width of 1, so it's going to be the same as it shrinks down, so it's going to stay a consistent width. So when you shrink your artwork, it's all going to mush up. What we need to do at the end point, we're going to duplicate all of our line art onto a separate layer. We're going to keep the original one in this form, but the duplicate layer we're going to do something called expanding. So let me quickly demonstrate that. So what we'll do is copy this line. So with this line selected, you just go Object, Expand Appearance, and now what this has done, if I move this close to this line here and select both, you'll see that this one has got a line going through the middle and this one has points going around the outside. What we've done is this original line we can move this way, so it's just kept the stroke through the middle, but this one, if I grab any one of these points, we've just kind of turned it into a kind of blob of paint almost, where we can manipulate all these areas. Let's just undo a bunch of times here. So what will happen when we expand these lines, let's copy and paste both these again and shrink them together. So say we want to shrink this artwork down, so let's bring this down. So you'll see here that the top line has still got a stroke width of 1, but this line that we've just expanded is scaling down in proportion. Very important step to understand, so I just wanted to cover that before we dive into the inking. We'll cover it again at the end, but it's just something I want to kind of double address as we go along here. So that's just very important. Okay, so those are our brushes all completed. If we find during the progress of the piece that we need to change anything, we can also create new brushes as well, but for the most part I find that these ones here pretty much do everything I need for a kind of cartoon or comic illustration. So another important point at the moment is that none of these are saved permanently, so as soon as I delete this document off the screen, I'm going to lose those brushes, and when I create a new document I've got to go through the work of creating those again. So what we need to do is create these as a permanent brush library, and that's very easy to do. So again, make sure that your brushes palette is open, and you just come over to the flyout menu here and you just go Save Brush Library, and your save menu will come up and it'll go to the automatic area for saving your brushes. We can change this to whatever we want, so save as, you can call it your own name, so for example you could call them Bob's brushes or cartoon brushes, something like that. So I think what I'll do is call these, let's call them just inking brushes. Let's put a space there. Okay, and save. So they're saved permanently now, so if I delete this document, okay, so I've just opened up Illustrator again, I'll just create a brand new document. So let's just OK that. With the brushes menu open, if we go over here, we're not going to see them. So don't worry, you haven't lost them. They're still there, we've just got to call them up. So all you need to do is come down to this fly out menu again, open brush library, and down here you want user defined, and here you'll see inking brushes, the ones we've just created. So click that, and here you'll have all your brushes. We've still got the default ones in there, so we can still use kind of like a plain width one, which can come in handy for certain areas. So kind of keep all these ones, and again you can see here we've got all the ones we've just created. So it's very important to remember to save your brushes once you've created them, so each time you open a new document you've got access to those brushes. Okay, so that's covering how we create some custom brushes in Illustrator, and we'll be using those in the project to follow. So have a play around with creating some of these, and feel free to come up with some of your own. You're not limited to just the ones I've created. Maybe have a play around with some of the tools. Maybe you can make some that kind of are a bit more wavy in the middle. You could almost create a brush that you could add a wavy effect to some hair, something like that. So have a play around and just save them all down, and when you're ready, move on to the next video and you'll start creating some artwork for the project.
Extracted and treated until all parts meld into this moment inextricable